Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrata Gacharya Stotra Stotra Srimad Bhagavatam Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vasani ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki Shri Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Yamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Hare Krishna Mantra ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Nrsimhadev Prahlad Maharaj ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan Maharaj ki, Itai Gaur Premanande, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Nirjala Kadasi Vrata ki. Om Jnanatamarandhyasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagatatam Sagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavani Ishwari Visubhana Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mare Kabando Matsangin, Mad Guru Manmadana, Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute, Asaru Saru Tadayan, Atinito Tatakara, Hanamuncha Karachin Mam, Premno Ritkatayospura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Astapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayat Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, everybody. So here we are on Friday, June 6th, Pandava Bhima Nirjal Ekadasi. Very auspicious day to practice Krishna consciousness. I'm reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter number 28, Paranjana becomes a woman in his next life. Text number 49 and 50. I'll read 49 and we'll do 50 together. Evam vilapanti bala vipanenu gatapatim patita padayor bartu rudya shunyavad yavartayat. The most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her dead husband and began to cry pitifully in that solitary forest. Thus the tears rolled down from her eyes. Purport. Just as a beloved wife becomes afflicted at the passing away of her husband, when a spiritual master passes away, the disciple becomes similarly bereaved. Chitam darumayim chitva tasyam patyukalevaram adipya chanumarane virapanti manodade. Chitam darumayim chitva tasyam patyukalevaram adipya chanumarane vilapante manodade. Chitam darumayim chitva tasyam patyukalevaram adipya chanumarane virapanti manodade. Chitam darumayim chitva tasyam patyukalevaram adipya chanumarane virapanti manodade. Chitam darumayim chitva tasyam patyukalevaram adipya chanumarane virapanti manodade. Okay, word for word. Chitam, funeral pyre. Darumayim, made with wood. Chitwa, having piled up. Tasyam, on that. Patyu, of the husband. Kalevaram, body. Adipya, after igniting. Cha, also. Anumane, to die along with him. Vilapanti, lamenting. Mana, her mind. Dade, fixed. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. Please repeat. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. Purport. It is the long-standing tradition of the Vedic system that a faithful wife dies along with her husband. This is called Samarana. In India, this system was prevalent even to the date of British occupation. At that time, however, a wife who did not wish to die with her husband was sometimes forced to do so by her relatives. Formerly, that was not the case. The wife used to enter the fire voluntarily. The British government stopped this practice, considering it inhuman. However, from the early history of India, we find that when Maharaj Pandu died, he was survived by two wives, Madhuri and Kunti. The question was whether both should die or one should die. After the death of Maharaj Pandu, his wife settled that one should remain and the other should go. Madhuri perished with her husband in the fire, and Kunti would remain to take care of the 5 Pandava children. Even as late as 1936, we saw a devoted wife voluntarily enter the fire of her husband. This indicates that a devotee's wife must be prepared to act in such a way. Similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to reestablish the principles of religion, so his representative, the spiritual master, also comes to reestablish religious principles. It is the duty of the disciples to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciples should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. Heavy. Prabhupada ki. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadade Nirvishesha Shandivadi Pastita Deshitare. So we're hearing about the death of King Malaya Dwaja. And we've heard the entire journey of Puranjana from the beginning. Of course, Maharaj Prachini Barshtat was engaging in various types of animal sacrifices, and rather than tell him directly that this is very sinful and this is going to end badly for you, Narada Muni described the analogy of King Puranjana. And going back much, much further, we're hearing about the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu is the great Mahajan who is the father of mankind. And you can basically trace back all of humanity to Swayambhuva Manu. And so Vidura asked Maitreya to describe the progeny of Swayambhuva Manu, which we began by hearing about Devahuti way back then, 2020, 2019. Devahuti, of course, was the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, and she was given in charity to the sage Kardama. And there was Prashuti and Akuti, and Prashuti was given to Daksha. And Akuti was given to, I believe, Archie. Mumi, I think. I have to check. And thus the progeny of the world was begun. And we're going to hear about that line. Of course, there were the sons of Swayambhuva Manu, whose names were, anybody know? Swayambhuva Manu's sons' names. Dhruva Maharaj's father, King Uttanapad, and his brother, Maharaj Priyavrata. And so we're hearing about the line of Maharaj Uttanapad, right? Because Uttanapad was the father of Dhruva, and Dhruva's brother's name was Uttama. And so Maharaj's family line is going down. And of course, we heard about King Anga and King Vena and Maharaj Prithu, and so forth, so forth. And now we're hearing about Prachini Barshtat, who is the father of the Prachetas. And so we know that the world is periodically annihilated, that the three worlds are inundated, right? Sometimes after, there's what's called a partial devastation, not like in the sense of the end of Brahma's day. There's also, that's a big partial devastation, but there's a minor partial devastation that happens after the end of each Manu's life. And so after each Manu, there's a partial devastation, and then a new Manu is established to propagate the human race. But they're coming in the line of Swayambhuva Manu. So we're going to hear about how we know these Prachetas are coming down the line of Swayambhuva Manu from Maharaj Uttanapad, and we're going to hear about how after they go down in to do austerities, they come out, and Lord Shiva, he gives them a beautiful prayer, which by chanting they become enlightened. And then when they come out of their austerities, the earth was overgrown by trees. So the Prachetas decided to burn the trees out of anger, and they started destroying the trees with their mystic power by shooting fire out of their mouths or eyes or something like that, and burning all the trees. And then the moon became upset, and gave them a daughter by which they can have children, right, to stop them from killing the trees. And so this daughter, they had children, and from that marriage, Daksha was reincarnated. Because Daksha was, he found himself in an unfortunate situation by offending Lord Shiva, and he ended up with the goat head, not in his foot, but he actually ended up with the head of a goat. And it's near Jalakadasi, okay. It's near Jalakadasi, okay, we're a little bit loopy. And so Maharaj Daksha was then reborn, right? And from him, all the human race which we see today is coming. So, does anyone wonder why we're so offensive as a race? You see, all the different creatures were spawning from him, and he had 10,000 sons with his wife, because he was wanting to reproduce, but he was having some issues. So he performed the Hamsaguya prayers, and these beautiful prayers he offered to Lord Vishnu. And after doing austerities, Lord Vishnu blessed him that you can have unlimited enjoyment. And although Daksha is a devotee, he's not a pure devotee, right? Because rather than wanting pure devotional service, he wanted to have practically unlimited sex life, to the level where he had 10,000 children, 10,000 sons, and then sent them to perform austerities before they became Prajapatis. And then along the way, in their process of performing austerities, Narada Muni beamed in and turned them all into sannyasis. And so they did. So then Maharaj Daksha said, okay, well, shoot it again, So then another 1,000 boys came out and sent them to do austerities, and Narada Muni turned them into sannyasis again. And so then Daksha became very, very angry. And he chastised Narada Muni, because he said that, it's not proper for someone to go from being a child to being a sannyasi. And they should do their dharma by going through all the ashrams, and he was very upset. And so he cursed Narada Muni that he would not be able to stay in one spot. He would have to travel. And Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purports, says that the parents of my disciples have also cursed me. I continuously travel. So then Maharaj Daksha said, okay, this time I got it. I'm going to have 60 daughters. And because the Narada Muni won't turn the daughters into sannyasis. So Daksha had 60 daughters. And quite a few of those daughters were given in charity to Kasapya Muni. And Kasapya Muni is the, Kasapya? Kashapya. Kashapya Muni, okay. Okay, Kashapa. I haven't seen the word in written form in a while. Thank you. So they were given to him, and he basically fathered all the various races that we see today. He's the father of the Daityas through his wife, Diti, and the Daityas are the family of demons, right? Because the Daityas come from Diti, and the first Daityas were Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. And then from them came Virochana, I think, Virochana. And then Maharaj Bali. And then Maharaj Bali's descendants are all kinds of demons Krishna fights. It doesn't kill them like Bana. Bana is the son of Bali. And also Denu. That's why Balaram killed Denu, because Denu is actually a descendant of Bali. And then there's the Danavas, and then there's the Adityas, right, coming from the Aditi. And the Adityas are the demigods, headed by King Indra and family. And the most prominent Aditya, of course, is Lord Vamana. So we're hearing about this great big human family. Purana means this history. Atra sargo visargashta, stanam poshanam uttayaha, manvantari shanukata, nirado muktir ashraya. Nirado muktir ashraya. This is the 10 topics of a Mahapurana. And these 10 topics, when you analyze that there's 10 topics in the Bhagavatam, you become very, very, means creation. How does the Lord create the world, the universe, the material, the existence? So how many people have asked that? Everybody's asked that. How did this come to be? How is this creation happening? Atra Sarga. So the Sargas. So the Lord creates. How does the Lord create? By breathing universes, right? He breathes the universes out, and those universes are filled with what's called the pradhan. The pradhan is the basic amalgamation of all material energy. And from that pradhan, by his glance, Lord Shiva and the Jivas, they come and they agitate the pradhan, and it becomes the Mahatattva. And the Mahatattva is the unmanifested material energy, but separated into modes. And then by contact with the different elements, the modes manifest and the universe is manifested. And then the first created being, after all that happens, Vishnu goes into the universe, and from him grows a lotus, and then Brahma is created. And then Brahma creates a second time, right? He creates what's in this universe. That's called Visharga, or the secondary creation, which we're hearing about, creation of the fourth order. This is the secondary creation. How is it that Brahma's lineage created this whole thing we have going today? So we have Visharga, Poshanam, Stanam. Stanam means the planetary systems, right? And it's very interesting because one of the topics of the Bhagavatam is why living entities are put in the situations they're put in. Why does a living entity have to deal with a certain... Why are you where you're at? Why are you living in Tucson, Arizona? Why are you living at Hare Krishna Temple, Gauranga Temple? Why are you on planet Earth? So it's this Stanam. Important to know. So the fifth canto discusses Stanam, right? Why living entities achieve certain planetary systems, certain circumstances, certain ashrams. Stanam Poshanam. The Lord is protecting us. And how is the Lord protecting us? So we hear about Poshanam, which is mainly dealt with in the sixth canto, although all the elements are in every canto. Poshanam. Uttayaha, the creative impetus. Why do living entities do what they do? Ever wonder that? Why is someone doing that? Why is someone acting so foolishly? Uttayaha. So then Uttayaha is described in the seventh canto, right? We hear about why Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha are doing what they're doing. Why is Prahlad Maharaj doing what he's doing? We hear about the Python sage. He's describing the impetus. Manvantare Ishu Anukata. What is the administration of Manus? It's like we're interested in knowing about the president and the administration of the president. There's the Trump administration, there's the Biden administration, Obama administration, Bush administration, Clinton administration, and they all have their, special faults. They all have their own unique type of evil. And so, in the same way, but not in the evil way, we want to know about the administration we're living under, which Manu we're living under, right? We're living under the administration of a certain Manu. Who's our present Manu? What's that? Speak loud. No, Chakshush is the last Manu. Vaivashvata Manu. Vaivashvata Manu is our current Manu. And he's the son of the sun god. Krishna says that I first imparted this knowledge unto the sun god, Vivashwan. And Vivashwan imparted it unto Manu, the father of mankind. And from Manu, it was imparted to Ikshvaku, Ikshvaku is the head of the sun dynasty, the Raghu dynasty, right? And that Raghu dynasty comes down, and then who incarnates in the Raghu dynasty? Who? No, Ram. That's why Ram is Raghupati Raghava. So, that's Lord Ram. And then there's the other dynasty, the Soma dynasty, of whom Krishna incarnates into. So it's important to know this, because each administration changes, certain things change every single Manu. And a Manu lasts 72 Chatur Yugas. So a Manu lives for about 72 Chatur Yugas. And there's 14 Manus in the day of Brahma. So for 72 Chatra Yugas, one Manu is ruling. The 72 cycles of 432 million years, a certain Manu is ruling. And then that Manu shifts, and another Manu is born and is set to rule. So each time the Manu shifts, certain entities shift. All the demigods shift. There's a different Indra, there's a different Soma, there's a different Surya, there's a different, not Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, those don't change, but there's a different Varuna. All the demigods shift, and there's a different set of 7 sages. The 7 sages also shift at the end of every Manu. And then things are reestablished. So by hearing about this, we understand, how we came to be, right? It's so important. We say that history is important. Why do we study mundane history? We study mundane history because we learn from it, right? We learn from mundane history how not to repeat it. So in the same way, when we learn from great personalities, we learn how to emulate what they do and how to not repeat their mistakes, right? We can always learn from great personalities like Swayambhu Manu, the great devotees of the Lord. Maharaj Bali, I've been reading about a lot lately. And so then you hear about Isha Anukata. And what does Isha mean? God, controller, yeah. Isha means controller, sure. And Kata means speaking about. So Anukata is more like, it's more focused. So Isha Anukata, Prabhupada translates to the science of God. So God is a science. So one of the things we learn in Srimad Bhagavatam class is the science of God. Isha Anukata. How do you deliberate on Krishna? Isha Anukata. Nirodho, the destruction, annihilation. Nirodho, what is the process of annihilation? How are things annihilated in this world? Yes. There's actually 3 types of annihilation that are discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the ultimate annihilation is going back home, back to Godhead. That's why Srila Prabhupada translates that Nirodho to going back home, back to Godhead in his translation of that verse. So Nirodho, Muktir, liberation. What is liberation? Many people are talking about liberation. What is it? And Ashrayaha, the supreme shelter, the supreme summon bonum. And who is the supreme summon bonum? Krishna. So in that way, the Bhagavatam has 10 major topics that are spoken about. So there's my little introductory history of how we're getting into it. So in that way, we're hearing about a lot of these topics right now. You see, we're hearing about these important topics. We're hearing about the lineage of Swayambhu Manu, Isha Anukata. We're hearing about the Lord, Manvantar. We're hearing about the Lord's protection. We're hearing about all these different things. We're hearing about the Visarga. This is the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. By understanding these topics, one can understand things as they are. So this analogy is going on. Narada Muni is speaking this analogy, and he's describing Malayadvaj, the husband of Vidarbhi, who was Puranjan in his last life. And so it says, the most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her dead husband and began to cry pitifully in that solitary forest. Thus tears rolled down from her eyes. Purport, just as a devoted wife becomes afflicted at the passing away of her husband, when a spiritual master passes away, the disciple becomes similarly bereaved. Prabhupada's making the point here that one should have love for the spiritual master. It's the point that one is making, that one should have love for the Guru, in that we are developing attachment, because the Guru is giving a message. And the Guru is the representative of Krishna, so attachment to the Guru is the same as attachment to Krishna. Yasyadeve Prabhaktir Yata Devi Tatagaro Tasyate Katita Jata Prakasanta Mahatmana. That this having implicit faith in the Guru and in the Supreme Lord, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are revealed. So one has love for the Guru because the Guru is representing Krishna. not because the guru is making one's false ego inflated. So we can do that sometimes. One mistake people make is that one of the ways the false ego traps a disciple is that the disciple thinks the guru is very important. My guru is a very important person, and he's my guru. And therefore, because I'm his disciple, I'm also a very important person. And so I'm always next to the side of my guru. Just see my importance. This is one of the traps of the false ego. And so in that way, if that's our consciousness toward the guru, then it's hard to make actual progress. Rather, one should develop love for the guru. And it's not, we all have to act according to our capacity. Not everybody's going to be able to do the same amount of service as everybody else or the same types of service. So what's very important is the consciousness by which that service is done. There's one nice pastime in this connection of Srila Prabhupada. As he was leaving his body, you've probably heard he wanted to go on Govardhan Parikram. Right? He was anxious to go on Govardhan Parikram. And different devotees told Prabhupada, you'll die, especially headed by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, was very much against Srila Prabhupada going on Parikram. You're going to die, Prabhupada. And Lokanath Maharaj was very much, we got to follow the order of the guru. He wants to go on Parikram, let's take him on Parikram. And so there was some dissension between the disciples of Srila Prabhupada as to whether Prabhupada should or should not go on Parikram. So at a certain point, they had arranged for like a palanquin, something like that, for Srila Prabhupada. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very, very upset. He was very, very upset. And he was the devotee. This is one of the Prabhupada memories. I forgot the person describing this memory, but a lot of people talk about this incident. That this particular person was saying, Maharaj was very, very upset. And so, I think they eventually convinced Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj to tell Prabhupada not to go on Parikram. At one point, Prabhupada, when he told Tamal Krishna Maharaj that I don't want to, okay, let's not do the Parikram, Tamal Krishna Maharaj chastised Srila Prabhupada out of his love and frustration. He said, why do you do this to us? You get us all worked up. I'm, like we're losing our minds here. Really. And Prabhupada very innocently and sweetly said, it's my duty to make you love me more. And so in that way, he increased the love of his disciples for him. So the guru should capture our heart. Lord Chaitanya captured the hearts of the Mayavadis. We can all, anybody knows a Vaishnava can defeat Mayavadi philosophy. It's very easy. If you learn Prabhupada's books, there's no Mayavadi that can stand against you. You have Srila Prabhupada behind you. But there's a difference between defeating philosophy and making devotees and actual preaching. Because Lord Chaitanya, he made devotees by his behavior, right? What was it that impressed the disciples of Prakashananda Saraswati? It was that Lord Chaitanya was so humble, right? When he came in, all the sannyasis were invited to take prasadam at the Brahmana's house, and they all sat in their esteemed seats. And where did Lord Chaitanya sit? He sat by the shoes, right? And so they were impressed by his humility and his effulgence. And so that opened up the conversation by which they were receptive to hear the proper siddhanta of Krishna consciousness. In a similar way, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya arrogantly wanted to instruct Lord Chaitanya about Vedanta. And Lord Chaitanya, what did he do? He listened for 7 days. For 7 days, Lord Chaitanya listened about Vedanta. And then after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I've given my entire heart to you. Oh, what do you have to say? And then Lord Chaitanya was able to preach the philosophy. So one should develop love for the spiritual master by his qualities, right? And by what he's giving, his message he's giving. Okay, so the next verse, it's described how, we're hearing about the sati rite. There's you did prepared a blazing fire. And it is a long-standing tradition of the Vedic system that a faithful wife die along with her husband. This is called sahamarana. And in India, this system was prevalent even to the date of British occupation. This indicates that a devotee's wife should be prepared to act in such a way. So Prabhupada's saying here that a husband and wife should love each other very much. That the devotee's wife and husband also should be dedicated to each other. Of course, in Kali Yuga, only an expert can maintain a family. And it's getting harder and harder day by day because everything's more and more entangling. And we're influenced. So, however, when Krishna is truly in the center, real love means sacrifice, that one is sacrificing for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas, right? And so an actual devotional relationship basically means two Vaishnavas, right? And we want to please the Vaishnavas. And so by the husband's service to the wife and the wife's service to the husband, spiritual progress is made because it's service to the Vaishnavas. And I just see that so clearly in Nirkula and Vaisheshika Prabhu. You just see how Nirkula Mataji just so sincerely serves Vaisheshika Prabhu, and how much love and affection Vaisheshika Prabhu has for Nirkula Mataji. And in that way, because of that service, and because of their sincere devotion and surrender to Srila Prabhupada and to the principles of Krishna consciousness, they managed to somehow or another be the most inspiring devotees at every single gathering of devotees. You get all the devotees together, all the amazing, inspiring devotees, and then it's always like the Rajasuya sacrifice, and Vaisheshika Prabhu is always he's like the most effulgent, amazing devotee every time. He always just hits it out of the park. Because you see that the lack of false ego in that a humble servant of the Vaishnavas, and very much aware of himself as not being sannyasi, not being grihasta, not being vanaprastha, but being the servant of the servant of the servant. And so this is the real spiritual understanding, rather than becoming confused and letting ashram and varna are ways that the false ego gets us. And the false ego starts off with the senses. The senses are saying, this and that, and because I want to enjoy my senses, I place myself in a particular circumstance. And from that circumstance, I try to find, all types of sense gratification, both gross and subtle. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that similarly, a devoted disciple of a spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. So this is the standard here of actually approaching a guru. Everybody wants a guru, right? So many times it's like, I want the cool name and I want to fit into the crowd and go to the church on Sunday and feel like I'm a productive member of the church. But that's not Bhagavat Dharma, right? Dharma prodhito kaitavota paramo nirmatsaranam satam. That this real Bhagavat Dharma is rejecting the four principles of mundane religiosity, of one of which is religion. That I'm a religious man, I have a guru. We hear that all the time, actually, when you preach at the campus. The Indians also, I have a guru. What does your guru teach? I don't know. What are you doing for your guru? I don't know. What are you, where's your, no, it's official. It's like the difference between Sukracharya, right? He was the guru of the demons. Bali Maharaj. Shukra actually means seminal, like the seminal guru, the family guru. And Maharaj Bali rejected him because he wasn't propagating the truth of surrender to the Supreme Lord. And we see that in Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada never at one point, ever in his books, deviates from the standard of complete surrender to Krishna. He always presents complete surrender to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, if you listen to his classes consistently, I think I've listened to about 300 classes in the last 3 months of Srila Prabhupada. Every single class Prabhupada gives is done with full enthusiasm, more enthusiasm than I think any of us could muster. Full enthusiasm, because Prabhupada had compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. And I'm getting a call from India. And knowledge. So Prabhupada's an example of someone who is devoted to the order of the spiritual master and would rather die, because Srila Prabhupada took such a risk. He absolutely and unequivocally risked his life to come give this mission of Krishna consciousness to the West. He risked his life. He had 2 heart attacks and likely would not have survived the 3rd. So he was risking his life, and he would have rather died. This is absolute surrender. So we should also similarly follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada by making the mission of our Guru and Prabhupada the mission of our lives. That let me, mam ekam sharanam braja, let me make Krishna number 1 in my life. And let me find my place in the mission of Prabhupada and actually be fully devoted to that. Every day that I wake up, I have that goal. That's a very nourishing situation, because when you have something to live for that's a higher principle, then it's much more rewarding. And what to speak of, people put mundane principles, but having the Guru, this principle of spiritual surrender to Krishna, this is so rewarding. This is so powerful. So we should be devoted to the order of our Guru fully. And then we can taste the effects, actually, of Krishna consciousness. It's not such a mechanical thing that, if I bow down the right way and I say the right prayers and I do the right, procedures, that somehow or another I'm going to please God. That's the beginning. But what actually pleases Krishna is that desire to serve and to sacrifice, make sacrifice for Krishna, right? As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So when we have that mission of the Guru, and that includes all his instructions, most importantly, of course, our own salvation, in the sense that we're chanting our rounds nicely and we're following the 4 regulative principles strictly. And we've taken a vow. I mean, it's so common these days to take a vow and not take it seriously. How many times have we heard, someone does a fire yagya in the temple or something, and they get married, and then they say, "Oh, we're not actually married. We just did the fire yagya. We didn't actually get married by the state." I'm thinking, wait a minute here. You went and promised God and the devotees and the Vaishnavas, hey, I'm going to do this, but I'm not really married because I didn't promise, the government of the United States of America. This is big Maya, as Ganganath used to say, big Maya, right? Rather, if you're going to promise the Supreme Lord something, you better be thinking about it, right? So, when you make your vows to take initiation, we follow 4 regulative principles. That's that. That's the end all. And I've made a vow to follow these 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds. I promise the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I promise my spiritual master, and I promise the assembly of devotees. So whatever position you put me in, my Guru Maharaj often says, he says, your principles should be so hard that everything breaks upon your principles. Rather than you breaking on the principles of others, everything breaks upon your principles. That I will suffer whatever I have to suffer, but I will finish my rounds, and I will, I will not fail in my vows. And if everything else falls away, if everything fails in life, as far as I'm concerned, my own personal, realization and approach is that, if I fail everything I do, but I chanted my 16 rounds and I didn't break the regulative principles, I consider myself successful, because there's nothing really else that matters. If you promise God something, I think that pretty much supersedes all other obligations. I promise the Supreme Lord. A real devotee. So that, and in that, once we take those orders of the spiritual master to of course chant and hear, not that that's minimizing that, but there's also to propagate the mission. In Mayapur, I think you were there, Prabhu, at Mayapur, when Kalakanta Prabhu asked Vaisheshika Prabhu, Vaisheshika Prabhu was speaking about the importance of the order of the Guru. And then Kalakanta Prabhu asked, what if the Guru's only order was to chant 16 rounds and follow 4 regulative principles? And it's kind of a challenging question, but Vaisheshika Prabhu, without even thinking, said, I consider him very, very fortunate. I consider him very, very fortunate. So just this order alone is so auspicious. And it's a very big deal if you can chant your rounds. When you meet devotees who have never missed their rounds, Mother Sandamani or Govinda Datta Prabhu, he's never missed his rounds. When you meet devotees like that, or maybe you miss and you make up the next day if you miss one because of service. But yeah, principles there that I've devoted to my rounds, and good rounds at that. We see that in Mother Sandamani. She's always chanting first class japa. So, because that's the vow, right? To chant Hare Krishna without offenses. So we got to make that attempt. That mercy is there. We get so much mercy from that vow. Like my friend Narahari Prabhu in Hawaii, he says, the regulative principles are hard, right? And the hardest regulative principle, no illicit sex. He always says, that's my favorite regulative principle, he says. Because after 50 plus years of practicing Krishna consciousness, he's had the realization that how much I've been saved from by following this principle. How much I've been saved from. That, my life has actually been wonderful because I made this vow and I've kept this vow. Rather than, out of fear. And just the vow alone increases your love for the personality of Godhead. If you make a promise and you keep a promise, that's a great act of love in a world where no one keeps their promises. And so just making a promise and keeping it is so powerful. So Prabhupada said we'd rather die. We'd rather die than not to carry out the order of the Guru. Because the Guru has come here to save us. So in gratitude, we should take up the mission of the Guru. And in that way, you please the Guru more, because it's one thing, second-class disciple just does what the Guru says. First-class disciple is actually thinking, what does the Guru want? And so how's the proper way a Vaishnava starts their day? By paying obeisances to their spiritual master, paying obeisances to the Panchatattva and to Krishna. Every day, every single day I wake up, first thing I do is I pay dandavats to my Guru, to Srila Prabhupada, and to the Panchatattva. This is the proper way of a Vaishnava to rise in the morning, that my first thing on my mind is, how will I be of service today in all circumstances, in all places? And I find that, at least in my life, that gives me so much mercy, that my consciousness is attempting to be absorbed in trying to spread Krishna consciousness, trying to serve Prabhupada. And Prabhupada also says that that's the beginning of becoming a well-wisher of Krishna. In one purport, Prabhupada says, we shouldn't just observe and glorify and be awed by God. Rather, we should become God's well-wisher. We should take up the mission of God. Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya triduskritam dharma samstapanartaya. So we do that in this age by specifically joining the Krishna consciousness movement and serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading his glories. And by the association of senior devotees and the spiritual master, we begging Krishna mercy in a sincere way, chanting Hare Krishna. Krishna gives you your own mission in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And that is real mercy. That is real reward, is that I have something to do when I wake up in the morning. I have a mission. I have a way in life. And out of gratitude, which is the basis of love, out of gratitude and appreciation, admiration, I am serving my guru and making the sacrifice, giving you a higher standard of happiness. So we should be prepared to lay down our life. And I think it's all throughout Radhanath Swami's journey home. If you don't have something to die for, you don't have something to live for. So that's a very powerful statement. If you don't have something to die for, you don't have anything to live for. And so it's when you grasp the scope of what Srila Prabhupada has done for us, even in a glimpse, it's so easy to think, yes, I would die for this. This is so wonderful. Because, right, like in the sense that Prabhupada risked everything and destroyed his body to give us this. He was dying for us. And so in gratitude, we can feel the same. And that's real love. Just like, I'll just end with this little last statement of Malati, nice memory of Malati Mataji. She was, Malati Prabhu, she was serving Prabhupada's godbrother's prasadam. And she was like really nervous, like young girl, you know, and she didn't know like how, so she somehow she decided she was going to like put her chadar over her face when she came in to serve. Because she was thinking like, you know, I don't want them to see me, you know, all the godbrothers of Prabhupada. And so she like came in like this to serve the prasadam. And it was kind of like, you know, pathetic a little bit. And then the godbrothers were asking, do you have like a girl serving? And he said, yeah, she's imperfect. Sometimes she makes mistakes. But she said, she would cut my throat. She would cut her throat for me, and I would cut mine for her. Now, what an amazing thing to hear your spiritual master say, right? And Malati lives that to this day. You know, there's no doubt about it. If you're around her, she is 100%, 150% Prabhupada. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. I could keep talking, but I know that we're not having breakfast, but I know that the water is leaving my mouth as I speak more and more. Any questions or comments? Pavita?
Other than having love for Srila Prabhupada, one reason that I've been able to stay is out of sheer fear of what's going to happen if I leave.
Right.
It's just sheer fear, and that there's been times in my life when I've thought about, you know, if I've gone through hard times, what it would be like if I actually left. And I start getting, Krishna starts giving me a taste of my karma back. And it scares me so bad that I just come running, you know, just there's no question about it. So, yeah, just out of sheer fear, it has a lot to do. But of course, out of that fear and that protection, you develop love, you know. And
we have so much shelter, you know, like
yeah.
It's like Prabhupada gave us so much shelter. Like, I don't think, especially people born in this movement, you don't realize how much we have. And I think even being in the movement for even me, I've been here, you know, I've been around this movement for almost about 8-9 years. And I've been in the temple for about 5 years. But I take it for granted sometimes, like devotee life is so wonderful. You know, we have such a wonderful life. And that doesn't mean like just sannyasis, just brahmacharis. Everybody, grihastas, bhaktas, it's wonderful from day one. And we're protected from the cradle to the grave, actually. Krishna's there with us, protecting us, loving us, nourishing us. It's the mercy.
You know, your generation, I think you're in the third generation. I think the second generation is in their 50s now. But your generation is starting from a whole different point of view than like my generation. We were like picked up from the, you know, pits of hell, you know. And your generation is much more exalted. Much more exalted. You're starting at a higher level. Because I'll say things, realizations of things that I know, things that I've read, things that I've, and it's like you're yeah, okay, so, yeah, what's the next, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like, back then in the day, we'd say it was fresh and new, but you guys are like on a different, you're on a different platform. It's really amazing to watch.
I think
Wonderful.
what we have is when we join the Krishna conscious movement, we have all the experiences of the senior devotees. We have all of Prabhupada's books. We have all the memories. We have all of that there to help us. We have so much, actually, devotees that join nowadays have much more than devotees that joined in Prabhupada's time in that sense. We don't always take advantage, but the Maya we're coming out of is just as dark.
Yeah.
Just as dark, trust me. It's bad. I mean, I was like, you're seeing the best of the best. If someone joins the devotional Hare Krishna movement, they're the best. But you go to the campus. I've been to music festivals.
Yeah.
Before I was a devotee, that like the debauchery is so deep that I can't imagine it being worse at any other time in history. So.
I think it was. Oh, maybe not.
Me and my Guru Maharaj have talked about that before. We've gotten kind of talks like, I don't know, Gurudev. I think we got you beat. Like,
yeah, we're pretty bad.
We just say that it's all bad. Okay, anybody else? Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Pandava Nirjala Kadasi Vrata ki. Nowhere to go but to chant japa.